That was a tough game from a lot of aspects. I guess I can start with the good. I really liked D-Book tonight. Um, I really liked his defensive intensity. One of the things that I saw a lot that we haven't seen over the last 4 seasons, 5 seasons, is him fighting over screens. I really like him getting. I just like that defensive intensity. There were quite a few possessions where he was guarding Buddy Hield or where he was guarding Fox, where he had some pretty good contests fighting over the screen. Really like that. He's a bucket, of course. He has been a bucket. He will be a bucket. Uh, didn't end up closing it down the stretch of the game, but you can't expect him to just take over every single game at the end. Additionally, I really like CP3. He CP3 is an interesting one, where there are moments where he is clearly an All NBA player. Like he has those moments where he turns it on, and it's really funny. Like a good example of this was at the end of the second quarter. He got a steal, ran a pick and roll, fed Ayton, or not fed Ayton, but passed it to Ayton. Ayton kicked it out. I think we missed the 3-point shot. And then the next possession down the floor, he stripped Barnes on that post play. So and then immediately following that, he came down and hit a mid-range shot. So there are moments where that intensity just skyrockets, and I absolutely love to see it. I don't know. I mentioned this after last game. I don't think we're going to be seeing 20 points per game Chris Paul or even 16 points per game Chris Paul, but we definitely will continue to see just those moments of All NBA, just absolute talent. I would not say we're frauds. Whoever commented that, Hayden, I think that is a significant overstatement. But I do think this game exposed a lot of our weaknesses that really need to get addressed. One thing that I mentioned this in my post-game comment, one thing that just really sticks out to me that we just have to address, we fucking have to address, is our rebounding, our wing rebounding. It was atrocious tonight. Jay, Mchale, and Cam all did horrible jobs of boxing out tonight. And it allowed for a lot of easy second chance opportunities, whether it was Rashawn, Bagley, or Hassan. We saw that all the way throughout the night. I don't know what the ending rebound numbers ended up being, but I saw it at the end of the third quarter, and they were rebounding us by like 14 or 15. And like, you're going to get blown out of games, close games, or at least, if you cannot rebound. Over, under 8 and 12 points per game this season. That is fucking disrespectful, and come on now. We really need Sarge, and that scares me. I completely agree. And not only do we need Sarge as our backup big, because Damon Jones is fucking tough to watch. He's fucking tough to watch. But I would really like to see Sarge get some minutes next to Ayton because of rebounding. Because even though Mchale did a solid job of rebounding in the fourth quarter at the end of this game, there were a lot of missed opportunities on rebounds, which was incredibly frustrating, and it became apparent even down in the fourth quarter. Like, if you didn't notice it all game, then I hope that you noticed it with Rashawn Holmes getting back-to-back offensive rebounds to seal the game for the Kings. That's so fucking frustrating. Put a body on somebody, for fuck's sake. Out-rebounded 56-40. Yeah, thank you. Def under, Ayton trash AF. We need to trade him. I'm not with that at all. I do not fuck with that line of thought. Ayton obviously did not have a great game today, but I got into an argument with somebody in the game thread, and they said he essentially looked like Jarrett Allen tonight. He was having a bad game, and he looked like Jarrett Allen. That's a fucking good thing. If he has a bad game, if he's getting doubled early, and he still is able to have the impact of Jarrett Allen, that is a good thing. I understand that we all want him to be Embiid. We all want him to be Jokic, but he's clearly not there at this point, and we have to come to grips with that. And although his offensive production was underwhelming tonight, do not get me wrong, they were doubling him all the way through the third quarter. I think on 85-90% of his touches through the third quarter, he got doubled instantly. And while obviously I would like to see him still score on a lot of those doubles, there was absolutely an element of what more do you want him to do? And I was really, really, really proud of Ayton keeping his head up during the doubles. He didn't handle every single double team perfectly, but there were a lot of double teams in which he caught it, instantly turned to the middle of the floor, the double came, and then he instantly kicked it out. A lot of times, rookie year, Ayton would dribble it, gather it up, and the double would come, and he'd kind of close in. I love to see him opening up and looking at the floor. It was incredibly, incredibly important for the later half of the first quarter and the second quarter in offense. A significant amount of our offense stimulated because we were getting Ayton low post touches early in the game, and then he was turning around and looking to kick it. Trade Booker, get the fuck out of my chat. Get the fuck out of my chat. We need a power forward to put in the game to rebound. It's not bad when in the paint. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think having Saric will be super, super nice. 25% from deep plus poor rebounding equals loss. Simple as that. I mean, the rebounding was without a doubt the biggest problem. Obviously, we're not going to shoot well from three every single night, but we have to rebound. And obviously, the Kings have three really good rebounding bigs, but they're not a top 5 rebounding team. They're like a borderline top 10 rebounding team. So we have to rebound better. Booker is overrated. Again, get the fuck out of my comments. He may not be getting the assist, but he's still kicking it out, and it's leading to good shots, even if he only ends up with a hockey assist. Exactly, bro. What in the world is going on, dude? I'm not fucking with any of the Booker trade talk going on in my comments. A lot of them is my friends just fucking trolling right now, and I'm not fucking with it at all. But dude, get the fuck out of here. Just ignore all the Booker comments. But anyways, Ayton, I was underwhelmed by his offensive production, but I think he looked great on the defensive end. I think I mentioned this in my post-game thread, but one thing that really, really makes me nervous, especially with Damon Jones getting the fucking significant minutes he is against teams that penetrate early. Or penetrate heavily. And why that is because we're rotating early, and that helped us on the perimeter shot, which was huge against a team like the Mavs, who shot a shitload of threes. But whenever we play a team like the Kings, whose primary offensive threat is their penetration, what that leads to is easier penetration and more funneling into our bigs. And that's great. I have faith in Ayton to contest well. But if you're funneling 15 to 20 possessions into the paint, then obviously Ayton is going to be picking up a lot of fouls. And when Ayton's picking up a lot of fouls and Damon Jones is getting 15 minutes per game, we're going to have a fucking rough time. I would love if we went after a guy like Vonleh or Dedmon, but obviously that's a prayer right there. We need Saric back, but I'm not sure that Saric is going to be the answer there, because we can't necessarily rely on our defense funneling drivers into Saric. What I need is Jalen Smith to establish himself as a legitimate shot contesting center. If that can happen, then our defensive set will work better. However, if Jalen Smith can't develop into a consistently shot contesting center off of the drive because we're rotating early, then it could be a longer season than we were expecting. Either that, or we just need to adjust our defensive strategy. I mean, we did that last year during the Ayton suspension. Whenever Kaminsky was getting heavy center backup minutes, we would run zone with him. So we obviously have the capacity to run different defensive strategies based off the players on the floor, but I did not see that tonight, and that is upsetting, and that is something that is going to need to change. So y'all are all Lakers fans. Jalen Smith is more of a 4 than a 5. Yeah, I know. Jalen Smith is a little bit perturbing because I would like to see him get more 5 minutes, especially against teams that run smaller lineups. The Kings are obviously not one of them, but they had about a 5 to 6 minute stretch in the third quarter where they were running Bagley at center. And I would like to see Jalen Smith match up against Bagley at center. That's what I would love to see. I'm also kind of looking forward to seeing some Jalen Smith minutes next to Ayton. I think that could be a huge solution to our wing rebounding problem that we're having. But when you do that, then you're relying on Damon Jones and Kaminsky in backup minutes, backup center minutes. And I don't love Frank Kaminsky. I was about to lie to y'all. I like Frank Kaminsky, but I hate him as a center. He's not a center. He's a horrible center. He can't defend the center position worth shit. I would like to see him at power forward positions. If it's a Kaminsky and Jalen Smith lineup, then I would like to see Jalen Smith at the center position. Not to mention the fact that Jalen Smith, his mobility is a question mark at this point. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about him getting power forward minutes. Jalen needs to play 5 over Damian. I don't care if he's a forward. DJ isn't an NBA player. This man's spitting bars. Big ol' burner can't get burned. Butler, if you're in my comment wilding the fuck out, chill, dude. Chill the fuck out. When DA isn't in the game, I would love to see a forward at center like Cam or Jay and switch everything just to try. That's an interesting thought, but I think whenever you get against a team like the Kings who run Hassan Whiteside at the backside, or at center as a backup, we saw what Hassan did to Damon Jones early in the game. What do you think he's going to do against a Jay Crowder? I am not somebody who is a fan of the forward at center movement in the NBA today, unless the opposing team is running a forward at center. And the Kings did not do that tonight, so I'm not in love with that. Who was the biggest disappointment tonight? I don't know. That's a tough question. I hate to say Javon Carter because we've seen this in the past. Javon is a solid three-point shooter, but he's an incredibly inconsistent three-point shooter where he'll have 2 or 3 game stretches where he's shooting 15% from 3, but then he'll have 2 or 3 game stretches where he's shooting 50% from 3. He's a very inconsistent three-point shooter, so I don't want to put any kind of blame onto Javon Carter. It definitely was not his fault. If I had to blame one person, this is not going to be a popular opinion. It'd probably be Cam Johnson. I think Cam had some great three-pointers. I love to see him attacking the basket, but he did a really shitty job at rebounding. Like Jay and Mchale both were underwhelming rebounding, but Cam was getting fucking eaten alive on the rebounds, and that was the difference in the game. So I hate to say that, but yeah, I miss Rashawn. I really miss Rashawn, and I really wish we still had him as a backup. The bench, other than campaign, was really bad tonight. Yeah, that was the difference in the game between tonight and last game. Where last game we had 31 bench points going into the fourth quarter. I think we finished with like 40. And tonight, Campaign was the only one that was able to get anything going. Cam hit a few shots, attacked the basket, like I mentioned, but we really couldn't get much bench help tonight, which was really, really frustrating to see. He shot 2 air balls in a row. Yeah, Javon missed 5 threes in 7 minutes. That's impressive. See, that's what I'm kind of saying. Is Javon, I hate to pin it on him because he played good defense on the perimeter. He did a good job on Hield and Corey Joseph whenever he was in the game. But when he's not hitting threes like that, I would like for him to not shoot them so quickly. He has the confidence of a good three-point shooter, and overall he's a good three-point shooter, but he's so inconsistent that it's a little scary. Adam 777, bunch of sevens. I appreciate the follow. Thank you so much. Javon is he's an interesting one. He is a bit of an enigma, and when he plays well, it is hard to beat us. But when he's playing poorly, he can really hurt our offense, especially when we have the bench in. Langston Galloway was also quiet tonight. Big old burner. I appreciate the follow. When Langston Galloway is in the game, I love his tenacity. I love the fact that he's letting it fly. He's a good enough shooter. Versus Javon Carter, that I don't give a fuck if Langston Galloway goes 0 for 3 from 3. I want him shooting those 3 threes. That being said, obviously him missing pretty much every shot he took. He might have missed every shot he took tonight. I haven't looked at the box score yet. But that definitely did not help us. I'm just curious why we didn't play Galloway more minutes. That is one thing that I highlighted. I want to say it was at the end of the first quarter. I'll be getting into my notes on the game on a higher level analysis later on. But that was one thing that I noted. Is at one point we had a lineup of Cam Payne, Mchale, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and Damon Jones. And I fucking hate that lineup. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not the worst lineup in the world, and it's significantly better than lineups that we've had in the past few years. But the playmaking in that lineup is entirely dependent on Cam Payne getting to the rim. And Damon Jones offers absolutely nothing within that offensive lineup. So it's essentially a 3-out offense with one driver and a big that isn't good at setting pick and rolls and is just standing in the post more often than not. I hated that lineup, and I would love to see that be Cam Payne, Galloway, and then 2 of Mchale, Jay, and Cam Johnson, rather than all 3 in one. I think if you're going to have all 3 in the lineup at once, you need to have at least one of D-Book and CP3, and we ran a lineup tonight with neither, and I kind of really fucking hated that. And not only that, but that was a lineup that we had on the court for like 4 minutes, and I think they went on like an 8-2 or 10-2 run. It had poor results, and I personally felt like it was obvious why it had such poor results. Y'all went cold in the fourth, and it didn't seem like y'all had anything to get y'all out of that. It's funny. I think Ayton actually did a solid job whenever we went cold in the fourth. But the rebounding was really what killed us. Is neither team was hitting a high level amount of shots, a high percentage of shots. So really it became a rebounding battle, and they fucking murked us in that rebounding battle. And I think that was the difference in the game. Booker and Ayton for Murray and Jokic. Obviously, I don't know. I love Booker. Booker is my favorite player in the NBA. I'm not even going to touch on that. There's a 3-4 minute stretch in the middle of the fourth where the Suns didn't get a point. Yeah, I know. It was brutal. It was when there was a little period of time when CP3 came out and Cam was running the point. And I like Cam. Cam had a great night tonight. But I want to see Cam as a secondary playmaker rather than a primary playmaker, unless if it's a lineup of like him and Javon or him and Galloway or him and Etuan Moore. But it really stalled our off-ball movement halfway through probably about 7 to 8 minutes left in the fourth. Appreciate the follow. It means a lot. If you like the content, definitely hit the follow. But anyways, but Javon, but Cam, yeah, I just like, there was definitely a period where our off-ball movement stalled, and I think that really killed our offensive flow, and it affected our three-point shots. We were still taking a bunch of three-point shots. I even made a comment in the post-game, or in the game thread, about how we don't need to make this three-point contest. And I'm fine with us taking as many three-point shots as we can with a bunch of our lineups. But when it's Cam Payne running the point and there's not a lot of off-ball movement, they weren't good three-point looks. And that really killed us for a little bit there. That was the time when CP3 and Ayton were both off the floor after Ayton picked up his fifth foul. Damian Jones offers nothing in every lineup. Yeah, I know. It's tough seeing him, man. Like, I thought he looked bad in the preseason. And was hoping that he could maybe turn it around a little bit, but I have no faith in him, and I even wish that we had re-signed Cheick Diallo at this point. And Cheick didn't do great for us, but fuck, at least Cheick can rebound. Like, god damn, dude. At all times in the game, Booker or CP3 has to be in the game. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think we need to heavily stagger their minutes. I think they're great together. So you do want them on the court at least at some point. I'd probably say you want to stagger it like 50-50, where if they both play, an analogy, play 30 minutes a game, I want to see at least 15 minutes together. And that still leaves 3 minutes in which neither are on the floor. And obviously Booker's going to be playing more like 34, 35 minutes, and Chris Paul, I don't know if he's going to be able to continue 30 minutes a game for the entire season. But I do like rotations with, we saw in the preseason a lot with Etuan Moore being a primary playmaker next to Cam Payne, and then either Galloway or Cam Johnson at the 3. I do like those lineups in limited minutes, but I do think they can create enough disruption. It's just one of those things with our backups. I think we need to choose a central theme rather than just be average at a couple of positions. And what I mean by that is Javon's a great defender. Galloway's a horrible defender. Javon's an incredibly inconsistent three-point shooter. Galloway is an incredibly consistent three-point shooter, even if he didn't show up too well tonight from the three-point line. But we need either three-point lineups or we need a lineup that can run in transition, led by Cam Payne and a Cam Johnson, and even a Galloway. Galloway is somebody who can get out in the fast break, and I'm completely comfortable taking fast break threes. But I disagree. The full bench just isn't good. I don't even disagree with that. I think that we have an above average 6 through 11 spots, but once you get to that 12th spot of Damon Jones, it's brutal. It's fucking brutal. And you have to remember that Saric is probably our sixth man. Although Cam is doing a solid enough job, Saric is probably our true sixth man, and we're missing him right now. So that is something to remember when quantifying how good or bad our bench is. I definitely would. Jokic and Jamal Murray for D-Book and Ayton, like you would think that we would take that, but obviously that is not something that I would necessarily like to take. It would be. I don't even want to think about getting rid of D-Book. But anyways, So Ayton's lack of offensive output, it definitely wasn't great tonight. I want to see the big man do more, but you also have to take into consideration the context that he was getting doubled on most of his possessions through the first three quarters, and then he got into foul trouble. So there's only so much you can expect out of him. He played great defense, did great against the doubles tonight. One thing I definitely want to highlight that I need to give Monty some props after complaining about backside or our wing rebounding and defensive game plan when Ayton's off the floor and all of that. I do want to give Monty a huge shout out on calling specific plays purposely for Ayton in the post. That is something that we saw none of with Igor, and we saw a little bit of last year, but I saw 6 different plays that the main focus of that play was getting Ayton a low post touch early on in the first 6 minutes. 6 plays in 6 minutes. It was like 6 of the 8 first offensive possessions that we had specifically went to Ayton in the low post. And they doubled him in the low post. But still, what that allowed us to do is create offensive spacing, and it allowed shooters to get open. We weren't knocking down shots, and we allowed the Kings to get onto a run. I think they started the game out 2-15 against us, which is atrocious and ended up being the difference in the game. But I do think that getting Ayton those post touches, whether he's converting them to baskets himself or not, is something that's incredibly beneficial to our offense, especially when it comes to spacing. There was one play that specifically personifies this, where Ayton caught it about 14 to 15 feet on the right side. They came and doubled immediately. He stepped through high, still doubled, couldn't do anything, couldn't put the ball on the ground, and he kicked it out to Jay Crowder on the opposite corner. That is a tough pass. Wasn't a great pass, but Jay was able to catch it low, pump fake, have the help defender go flying by, and then knock down the three. Having Ayton getting doubled, especially 15 feet and below, opens up our offense significantly. So I definitely was proud of the ball movement off of the Ayton low post offense, as well as the fact that we're running Ayton low post offense. Most teams will not double Ayton. We have fucking Chris Paul and Devin Booker. Like, most teams will not double DeAndre Ayton. And if we're getting him those touches, book it now. Fucking put my word on it. He will have a couple 30-point games this year if we continue to run that style of offense, especially against teams like the Nets and the Hornets. I almost called them the Bobcats, who just don't have great low post defenders against big men like DeAndre Ayton. So I'm very excited to see that Ayton low post. It was a lot more touches than he got last game, although he was in early foul trouble last game. And this is kind of one of those issues. I miss Aaron Baines. I miss Aaron Baines too. Aaron Baines would be a perfect backup for us right now. But We had to pay the man, and we weren't going to. Are there any veterans bigs in free agency? I like Noah Vonleh. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a solid 5 out of 10 player. But he can rebound, he can defend, and he can finish around the rim, which are 3 things Damon Jones fucking can't do. So I'd be all in on Vonleh. I like Dedmon. Dedmon's a little bit slower footed, so I don't know if we'd be able to run the early rotations on the perimeter with a Dedmon. But obviously he'd still be a step up from Damon Jones. Aaron Baines had a nice night against the Spurs tonight. Wasn't able to catch that game, but thoughts on Booker turnovers? Yeah, it's tough, man. It's one of those things where we have to take into consideration the context that there was essentially no training camp. I think they had a week or 2 weeks. There was no summer league. These guys haven't gotten a lot of run recently. I think he had 3 dribbling violation turnovers, which is bad. Like, that's fucking bad. 1 is too many. 3 is a lot. They were careless turnovers. But you have to remember, it's game 2. We've seen this before from D-Book. Just every once in a while he'll have a game like this where he turns it over more than necessary. But overall, I mean, he was still fucking getting buckets when we desperately needed him to, as well as creating the offense. When CP3 was off the floor, the ball movement was still pretty fantastic, except for early in the first quarter, as well as that little period of time where we had Campaign, Mchale, Jay, Cam, and Damon. That ball movement was fucking atrocious. But for most of the game, our ball movement was actually really, really solid. We just weren't knocking down shots. And I think that has a lot to do with D-Book. I think that even last year when we had Rubio, there were always those 3 or 4 minute stretches where our ball movement would kind of fade away and it became everybody watch D-Book go get a bucket kind of offense. And we didn't really see much of that tonight. There were a couple plays where he had to go get a bucket on his own after an offensive rebound or something like that. But I saw some good ball movement, and that's very promising even if we weren't knocking down the shots. I would like to see a play that the Cavs run for Drummond and a lot of teams where they run a horns pick with a center and power forward, turn the power forward to the pick for the center for the lob using CP3 passing ability and DA athleticism. Yeah, I could definitely agree. I definitely would like to see more back picks on DA rolling to the rim, open him up as a lob threat. That's what Lob City did a lot with DeAndre Jordan. So I'd be all in on him making more or running more of those plays. But in the meantime, I mean, we ran 3 lob possessions for Ayton tonight, both at the start of each half, which I like to see. But in the meantime, I'm completely okay with us establishing DeAndre Ayton in the post before we try to use him as a lob threat. I did like the CP3 and DeAndre Ayton pick and roll tonight. I think there were a lot of things to come away with that that are going to positively affect the season going forward. I think that even early on in the game, we saw a few possessions where DeAndre Ayton was rolling to the rim, and he would take CP3's defender with him. They would guard for the pass, and it would leave CP3 wide open for a mid-range, or the secondary guy on the baseline would step up, and it was a wide open corner 3. I think we went 0 for 2 on those corner 3s out of that possession type. But CP3 hit a couple of just wide open 15-footers out of that possession type. So I do think there's a lot of good things. They need to continue to obviously build that chemistry. I think there were some moments where CP3 wasn't necessarily looking for Ayton, but obviously Ayton didn't have the offense going tonight, so I can't necessarily put the blame on him for that. Thoughts on Mchale tonight? I think Mchale did fine. I love to continue to see his aggression. I love the fact that we're running pick and rolls for him. That is a huge, huge thing, and he's actually done really, really well in those Ayton pick and rolls. I think he ran one with Damon Jones that was pretty ugly, but he did run a handful with DeAndre Ayton, and that looked really good. There was that one where he had the nice feed just to the right of the defender's legs, and Ayton turned it into free throws. He should have made it an and one, but But he looked good tonight. Don't get me wrong. I think Mchale had a solid game tonight. I love to see the quick trigger. I love to see the confidence in the 3-point shot. Both of those things are absolutely huge for us. But at the end of the day, like I said, the thing that really killed us was the defensive rebounding from our wings, and he was definitely a part of that. There were quite a few possessions where Ayton helped over to contest a shot from Fox or from Hield, and nobody was there on the help side, and that was Mchale's job to get that rebound. He did a better job in the fourth quarter. I do think Monty probably highlighted it at some point. He had probably 2 or 3 rebounds in the fourth quarter, each of which were really big. But at the end of the day, I'd give him like a B grading. I thought he was fine. He did his role well. I love to see the continued progression from him attacking and running the pick and rolls. But he's got to improve. Not even in rebounding, but boxing out. Put a fucking body on somebody. And that was kind of my biggest problem with Jay as well. Jay played great down the stretch. I'd probably give Jay like a B+. And Jay played some great defense tonight. That's another point with Mchale that I haven't touched on. Mchale played some great defense tonight. I really, really love the fact that we had Mchale on Fox at the end of the game. I think that really slowed down his attempts at the rim. He was settling for mid-range and three-pointers more whenever Mchale was on him. And it allowed the game to be close longer. I love his fast break defense. He did fantastic tonight. I think at one point he had a deflection out of bounds on a 4-on-2 fast break. He had a couple blocks that were really impressive. He is a fucking elite defender as long as he keeps his man in front of him. But he needs to continue to bulk up because we saw it a lot in the Dallas game where when Luka decided, I'm going to stop settling for threes, he was driving it into his body, and there were a couple plays where he got by him. And we saw that a little bit tonight, but obviously not as much because he wasn't having to guard fucking Luka. Ayton is going to tear this fan base apart. I just think I understand it. People have super high expectations on Ayton. I get it. Everybody wants him to be Embiid, but he's not, and we have to accept that. And if we had taken Ayton with the 3rd pick, we'd be so fucking excited with him right now. But obviously, the pressure of having Luka be picked behind him has been significant. But at the end of the day, we can't go back and change that. So we have to be happy with the player we have. It's okay to get upset with his faults, but it's not okay to get upset that he didn't put up 30 and 10 tonight or 20 and 10 tonight. He had a good game. He impacted the game. It wasn't a great game. It definitely was on the bottom half of his game performances. But he still positively impacted the Suns, and we would be much, much worse off with an average run-of-the-mill center instead of DeAndre Ayton tonight. So I do think we need to fucking pump the brakes on the Ayton hate. I get it. It's easy. It's good for karma a lot of times anytime he messes up anything bad. But at the end of the day, he's still obviously a fucking good player. That's dope. Obviously basketball-wise, it would be great. It would be getting basically anyone else, but it is a good financial move to waive Jones sometime for mid-season. I couldn't agree more. I really, if Jones averages 10 minutes a game, then it might be tougher to make the playoffs than everybody was expecting. 10 minutes of Jones a game is really, really going to fucking hurt us. So I really hope that we're able to replace him or Sarge comes back. But even when Sarge comes back, bigs get hurt. That's just a fact of the NBA. Bigs are more likely to tweak their ankles or have insignificant knee problems. Or if you're DeAndre Ayton, get suspended for 25 games for PEDs or diuretics. But I'm really, really worried about if we have any significant big injuries. I'm not saying the season's over, but it's going to fucking hurt to watch. So I really do hope we're able to replace him mid-season. Are you concerned about the amount of open shots missed in the past 2 games? Not at all. Not even a little bit. Not even a fucking little bit. This is a decent 3-point shooting team, but if you want to see a great 3-point shooting team, like the Mavs, they miss a lot of threes too. That's just the give and take of the 3-point pace and space era. Is there's going to be 3 games where the threes don't fall. 2 games is way too small of a sample size, and we have great 3-point shooters on this team. I'm very confident in what I've seen out of Mchale and Cam Johnson. Galloway is a fucking flamethrower. He's been a fucking flamethrower, and he will be a flamethrower. D-Book's obviously a great shooter. CP3's obviously a great shooter. Javon's inconsistent, but I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes the season with 35-36% 3-point shooting. I have faith in us as a 3-point shooting team, but we will have bad 3-point shooting nights, and this was one of them. And that's to be expected with the 3-point shooting team. You can go back and look at the Warriors game logs when they had Steph, Clay, and KD, 3 of the greatest shooters of all time, literally the greatest shooter of all time, and one of the 3 or 4 greatest shooters of all time, and then fucking Kevin Durant, and they still had bad 3-point shooting nights. It is a given for a 3-point shooting team, and we're a 3-point shooting team now. Your hair looks nice. Thank you. James Harden's obese ass really dropped 44 and 17 assists. I did not get a chance to see that game tonight. I will be doing a review of the NBA games tonight tomorrow on this channel if you want to check it out. Just kind of going through and watching highlights and going through all the games. There's some really good games. I got to see the Memphis versus Hawks game, as well as the end of the 76ers versus Knicks. Embiid is looking dominant. Trey versus Ja was fun. But I digress. This is the Suns-Kings post-game analysis. If DA is in foul trouble, I think we win that game with that rebounding. I completely agree. And I don't think we can blame the fouling on Ayton, because we kind of have that defensive set where, like I said, we are funneling penetrators into Ayton by rotating early. And I'm all for us rotating early. It's a 3-point shooting league now, and by rotating early, that's going to help us significantly with 3-point shooting teams. That's the reason that we played such great defense on the Mavs at the 3-point line. But by doing that, we're going to allow heavily penetrating teams into the paint, and it is going to affect us with guys like Ayton. It will get him into foul trouble. No matter how good of defense he plays, it's inevitable. Whenever you have such a high volume of penetrations and you're relying so heavily on him to do the contesting, it's about all that you can do. Let's see. Okay, so I've given my overall thoughts on the game. Definitely want to look through the post-game thread on our Suns. Thank you to everybody from our Suns who is checking out this stream. And then we'll just kind of go through the my game notes that I took. Tough day for Arizona sports. That is really rough. And for all of y'all watching that are Arizona fans, I am sorry. It was definitely a rough day. And thankfully, I am not from Arizona. 4 main takeaways. That is me. The Suns are now 0-1 being outscored. I saw that earlier. It's actually really frustrating that we finally ended that winning streak. We were 9-0 in the last 9 games coming into this game. But hey, 9-1's not that bad. 9-1, I'll fucking take it. That is significantly better. And we couldn't expect to realistically win every game this season. Of course, we're going to be handed a few losses from teams worse than us, even the absolute best teams. We fucking beat the Bucks 2 or 3 years ago when we had 19 wins. We're going to lose to better teams. It's frustrating that it happened in the second game, but we will be able to recover. The Spurs Raptors is a much watch. Probably going to just watch that full game highlights, or full game F the highlights. I will not be watching that full game, but I will be watching the highlights. I'm glad Chris Paul finally gave a shot up before the buzzer. Oh my god, dude. I fucking cannot believe that neither of those shots counted. They were both beautiful shots, and the fact that neither of them counted, those 16 non-points really did hurt. And I thought for sure the one at the end of the second quarter was good. But at the end of the day, it is fucking great to see CP3 putting up some buzzer beaters. And it's nice to know that when it comes down to it, if we have to get a buzzer beater up, it doesn't have to be Booker. I know that's a huge extrapolation from 2 3-pointers that didn't even count. But obviously, if you've ever watched Chris Paul then you realize his shot-making ability at the buzzer. Like, it will be there. It is encouraging that the real reason we lost this game was rebounding, which is fixable. I fucking hope so, man. I fucking hope so. I mean, this is a problem that we ran into during the DeAndre Ayton suspension last year. DeAndre Ayton's here. And so, obviously, Sarich is going to help with that rebounding problem significantly, especially when he gets minutes at power forward. But we need to see more out of Cam, out of Jay, and out of Mchale. They're going to have to rebound more. Like, that is just a fucking fact. I know everybody's infatuated with them right now. Jay played great at the end of the game. Mchale's the our-son sweetheart, and everybody loves that Cam ended up being a decent pick. They're all playing well, but at the end of the day, when we play teams with two bigs like this, they will fucking kill us if Mchale, Cam, and Jay do not step up on the offensive or the defensive glass. And it's not even that they specifically have to get the rebounds; they just have to fucking box out, man. Like, put a body on somebody for the fucking sake of God. And it's really, really frustrating to watch. One of our biggest weaknesses on defense right now is because we're rotating early and we're allowing that penetration. When Ayton or Damon Jones steps up to contest that shot, nobody is rotating back to help defense on the center that Ayton is stepping off of to contest. And it led to 5 or 6 instances tonight from Hassan and Richaun Holmes where it was just easy, wide open putbacks. And Mchale, Jay, and Cam have to be there when that offensive rebound falls. Not even necessarily get the offensive or the rebound. Obviously, that would be beneficial, but they have to be there to at least contest the putback from the center. We gave up 8 to 10 points off that tonight, and that really, really hurt us. They shot 11 of 44 from 3. There's no chance they win a game like that. This is no one person's fault. Sometimes your shots don't fall. I agree, obviously. Like I said, some nights we're just not going to shoot as well. And you still have to be able to find a way to win games like that. And when you're not shooting well, guess what gets you in rebounds? Or in the games, rather, is rebounding. And nobody other than DeAndre Ayton decided it was a good idea to rebound tonight. Let's calm down. Kings seem legit. Beat the Nuggets before this game. It's a little terrifying. We have to remember that a playoff spot is not a shoo-in. We are not guaranteed a playoff spot. And the Kings looking legitimate tonight is not a fucking good thing. Like, that's actually an incredibly, incredibly bad thing for us. From the first 2 games from every NBA team, obviously the Warriors playing so bad is a reason for hope for our playoff expectations. But that being said, if the Kings are a playoff team, that's one less playoff spot for us. And obviously, I think that we are a better team than the Kings. But we have to show it. We have to show it. And we did not show it tonight. And it is as simple as that. We get another chance at them next game. It's a doubleheader with the Kings, so hopefully we are able to turn our luck around. But, you know, I saw a little comment right before I closed that about our lack of free throw shooting. I don't think it's the refs fucking us. In fact, I think the refs did a solid enough job throughout the night. Obviously, there were some individual calls that were really ticky-tacky on the Suns. But we're getting defensive calls this year, and that's something that we haven't gotten in the last handful of years. There have been quite a few offensive fouls called on the other team that we just haven't been getting, and we're starting to get those. And so even though we might not have the total respect of the refs, we are beginning to gain that respect. And to me, at least, that's becoming quite apparent. And so, you know, it could be worse, you know, from a ref's perspective. If y'all remember how bad it was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, it's better than it was then, is my point. Hell is having to stream this game from the Kings broadcast. Yeah, I had to do that tonight. It was not enjoyable. De'Aaron Fox is looking legitimately improved on defense, but god damn, dude, chill with the jerking him off on defense. D-Book still got a nice defensive look at the end of the fourth whenever he was out there. Kind of made D-Book juggle a little bit and then got switched on Richaun Holmes. He's still forced to switch there. So, like, De'Aaron Fox looked great from defense tonight. Do not get me wrong. He legitimately is looking like a defender that can cause havoc for other teams. But watching the Kings broadcast was fucking annoying. How many times are they gonna mention fucking what's his name? I didn't even know who he was. Not Jay Williams, but anyways. Yeah, they were excited about Halliburton. I was actually, as somebody who is a Halliburton fan, and was praying that we would take Halliburton, and was incredibly upset by the fact that we didn't. Halliburton did look good. He looks like a solid playmaker. However, that being said, I'm obviously not upset with the Jalen Smith pick yet. We need Dario back. That is for fucking sure. So I just kind of want to go through some notes that I took tonight. So the first play was a 8 and lob attempt right off the back. Love to see it. He actually, people keep talking about his stone hands, but one of the things that I think is really underrated about Ayton is his ability to gather himself. Where he might have fumbled the pass a little bit, but he was able to gather himself before turning and making a play. And that's something that's really, really underrated about Ayton, is even though his hand-eye on the catch might not be elite, his coordination is actually really, really solid, especially once he has the ball in his possession. 11 start, 2-15, we were just missing a shitload of shots. Ayton with the 6 post touches in the first 6 minutes, I talked about that. I highlighted that Jay Crowder, even early on, was just getting whooped on the backside rebounding, just getting his ass kicked. And he was playing good defense on Bagley. He was forcing Bagley into some tough shots, but Bagley got a handful of offensive rebounds there early, and that really hurt on that 2-15 start, which ended up being the difference in the game. Let's see. Our wings need to focus on boxing out more. We are forcing the ball to Ayton too much, which is an interesting point. Where after a certain point, like, I love the Ayton post touches. I think Ayton needs to get all of the fucking post touches in the world. But at a certain point, when we see that they're doubling him every single time he touches the ball, obviously the ball movement that stems from that is great. But let's get something else going. Maybe make that a secondary or tertiary part of our game planning, and not the primary focus. Is what I was highlighting there. One thing that was really, really interesting, and it just kind of plays into the Kings' play style, is the fact that they were full court pressing. They full court pressed like 12 to 15 different times, including at one point during the fourth quarter. And it goes into their play style of a fast break and penetration. But we'd really, obviously it's the NBA, so you'd hope a single guard would be able to handle a full court press. But I wouldn't mind us implementing some full court offense, like actual fluid motion, running up the court offense, rather than just one guard trying to beat the full court press. Obviously, that's fine. A single guard beating the full court press is standard in the NBA. But obviously, the Kings were doing it because they thought they could turn us over. And although our turnovers were better than against the Mavs, we didn't exactly fix that issue. So I do think that there will be other teams that will try us in the full court press, and we need to be prepared for it. D-Book was the one that ended the drought, the 2-15 run. Of course, that man's a goddamn dog. The ball movement started from the 8 and low post. I love to see Mchale. I mentioned this during the Mavs stream, the post game for the Mavs, and I love to see Mchale quick release threes, like not thinking it. The ball is entering his hands and he's going straight up. The hitch looks non-existent at this point. He's confident in his 3-point shot, and it's beautiful. It legitimately is. It's going to help him a lot as a 3-point shooter. It's going to continue to space out our offense because he's a quick trigger 3-point threat like Cam Johnson is. And it'll open up the driving lanes for him. So I love to see that quick release Mchale Bridges 3-point attempts. And that was actually one of the things that helped us get back into the game. One of the things that just as a good highlight for why Ayton was a good defender tonight, was there was 2 straight plays where they ran Buddy Hield pick and rolls at the top of the key, and they were looking for Buddy Hield 3-point shots or to dish it down to Rashawn off the roll. And Ayton stepped up on the hedge, but he kept the foot back where he would have been able to drop to Rashawn rolls really, really quickly and recover. So Buddy Hield pulled up from 3 really quickly, and on both of those attempts, Ayton contested fantastically. Got a hand up. Hield had to have a high release on that 3-point shot, and both of them were pretty bad misses. So not only was Ayton contesting well off of the hedge, but he was also in a great position where if Hield tried to step around him and dump it to Rashawn, he would still be able to recover quickly, even though the person defending Buddy on the screen went under. So I love to see the Ayton hedging. I love to see him contesting, and I love to see the footwork while he is hedging on the screens. Great defense from Ayton tonight in those specific situations, and I love to see it. There was a one point after Booker made back-to-back shots where the Kings started doubling Booker, and man, I fucking hope teams double Booker when he gets hot, because the one time the Kings doubled him, when he crossed half court, he kicked it straight to CP3. CP3 faked a pass, hit a wide open 3. You can't double D-Book anymore. We even saw it a little bit where teams felt comfortable double teaming D-Book with Rubio and Oubre. But if they double D-Book this season, it's gonna get real ugly for them really quickly. Which is why the Kings decided to double DeAndre instead. Crowder got beat off the dribble a couple times, which incredibly frustrated me. He finished off the game well, though. Damon Jones already on the quarter with 4 minutes left in the first. Hate to fucking see it. That's a quote from my notes. We need Sarge desperately. Why isn't Sticks the first big off the bench? And I still do not understand that. Why Damon Jones, who's an undersized center, is getting significant center minutes over Sticks when Sticks is also an undersized center. I definitely would like to see Sticks get more minutes than he did tonight, as well as be the first big off the bench. First defensive possession for Damon Jones, he fouled on a drive. There's a fucking shocker. Campaign continues to be our first guard off the bench, which is really interesting. I kind of expected us to lean into Etuan Moore and Langston Galloway. We haven't really seen much of Moore, but Campaign has been excellent for us. I am so excited by Campaign. I didn't touch on him much during my initial analysis, but he is playing very, very well, and it is clear. I hate to say this because we've seen instances of people having a good stretch of games and then returning to trash, but he's looking like a real fucking NBA player, man. He's fast as fuck. He's a solid defender. His 3-point shot is nice, and he's attacking the basket under control. And I mentioned this in the Mavs postgame, but that is the most significant difference between what I'm seeing now from him and what I saw from him on the Bulls, where he's always been fast, but a lot of times he would attack out of control, he would attack the basket out of control and just kind of throw it up, and we're not seeing that. And his finishing ability is actually looking really, really nice. Damon Jones getting dominated by Hassan Whiteside in back-to-back buckets. I put Jalen Smith in at that point. Really, like, he could not have played worse than Damon Jones during that stretch. So I would love to see Jalen Smith get those minutes. Talked about that really rough lineup that we had for a little bit. Payne was absolutely eating the first quarter and was incredibly important for our comeback, which ended up making it a game, even if we fell a little bit short. Second quarter, talked about how it started off with an offensive foul call, and the Kings love to see us getting those foul calls. Ayton getting the offensive rebound. That was one thing that was incredibly important that I think a lot of Suns fans really undervalued tonight, was the offensive rebounding. We were getting killed on defensive rebounding, but the offensive rebounding that Ayton brings is incredibly, incredibly valuable. If you look at his offensive rebounding averages for last year,
He didn't qualify enough to be in the actual leaderboards because he didn't play enough games. But he was averaging 3.9 offensive rebounds, which is equal to Tristan Thompson for second in the entire league. And people do not realize how much a difference 4 offensive rebounds a game. That's 4 more shot opportunities that DeAndre Ayton is providing for us. And he got a handful tonight. So I really think his offensive rebounding is an incredibly underrated skill. That's one of those things where I understand why people are upset with Ayton. He's not putting up the box score numbers, especially tonight. But he does the intangible things that literally actually contribute to winning, and that we'd be significantly worse off without, which I think is an incredibly underrated part of Ayton's game. Just kind of skimming through a lot of this because I touched on a lot of it. I love to see Jalen Smith at one point had a tough offensive rebounding. He looks like he could be a very legitimate NBA rebounder. He's athletic and he's long, and I would love to see him get some minutes next to Ayton. That alone would solve so many of our rebounding problems. And he didn't get many minutes tonight, and I just think that he should get 5 to 6 more minutes a game, even if it's next to Ayton, getting some rebounds. That should be his only thing, is closing out, not giving up easy buckets, and rebounding. The occasional 3 wouldn't be horrible. Obviously, Sarge is going to fill that role when he gets back. But until he does, I'd like to see some Smith minutes next to Ayton. Payne with back-to-back buckets. Again, I'm all for Payne getting some more minutes, especially with the way that he's been playing. The Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton pick and roll looking deadly right now. Both defenders sank with Ayton on the roll, which left Chris Paul with a wide-open 15-footer. Ayton opening towards the ball handler on the roll already shows CP3's impact on Ayton's game, which I think is a really underrated part. Ayton last year had a tendency to open away from the ball handler, which meant you couldn't instantly hit him with the rolls. In the act of rolling, he had to be established by the basket or near the basket in his rolls before the ball handler was capable of hitting him last year. And this year, he's opening up towards the ball handler, which has allowed CP3 to get some easy, quick dump-offs to him. We haven't capitalized on many of those plays, but that is a very promising thing going forward. Let's see. Whiteside absolutely killing our backup lineup, which is fucking ridiculous. Hassan Whiteside has no business killing our backup lineup. Jay's boxing out has been incredibly underwhelming this game. Let's see. Let's go on to the second half. I really love the defensive duo of Ayton D-Book, surprisingly enough, to start off the second half. They had a handful of really good defensive stops there for a little bit, and I love to see that. Crowder ends an early Kings run with the 3. I mentioned this in my Mavs game analysis, where I really do think Crowder could be somebody who not necessarily sparks us on big runs or is a dagger spark plug kind of player, but can help limit the opposing team's runs. Obviously, no matter what, the opposing team is going to go on runs, just like no matter what, we will go on runs. Basketball is a game of runs. But if Jay can continue to help limit those runs from the opposing team, that is one of those things that is an intangible skill, but I think will be really beneficial to us over the course of a season. D-Book knocking down back-to-back threes to give us the lead. I fucking love his shot. I love seeing it again. I am so happy that the NBA is back, if nothing else, other than getting to watch D-Book put up threes again. Like, that shit is just, it's beautiful, man. Love to see D-Book fighting over screens. Mchale stopping the 4-on-2 fast break, which I mentioned earlier. Galloway can't find the bottom of the net today, but love seeing the quick trigger. Want him to keep shooting away. We have 0 rebounding help when our center contests shots at the rim, which I mentioned. We are closing. I was actually kind of surprised that we closed out the third quarter with CP3 on the floor. That is not a lineup that we've had in the past 2 or 3 years. Even with Monty last year, we would almost always close out the third quarters with a backup guard. So it was actually kind of nice seeing CP3 get some run at the end of the third quarter if nothing else, in an attempt to stagger those minutes. Javon was cold. It was hurting us in such a close game. Now we're in the fourth quarter. Ayton with back-to-back big rebounds over Hassan. I think that it was apparent the effect that Ayton had on the game when he was on the court versus when he was off, and that couldn't have been more apparent in the rebounding. He had some pretty huge rebounds over Hassan, especially early in the fourth quarter before he picked up that fifth foul. So I think that was an incredibly, incredibly important thing. Chris Paul using the Ayton pick and roll to create space in the mid-range, knock it down. That's one of the things that, even though the Chris Paul and Ayton connection might not necessarily be there, Ayton does have a lot of gravity on his rolls, which already significantly, through 2 games, has allowed Chris Paul to get some pretty fucking wide open mid-range shots. Ayton with his fifth foul with 7:35 left in the fourth quarter. It was tough. I actually said it's going to be brutal watching Damon Jones down the stretch, but we actually put Kaminsky in. And the fact that we put Kaminsky in was kind of upsetting solely from the fact that I had to see Damon Jones as much as I did. I would have preferred Kaminsky in at least some of those minutes. I really would like to see Kaminsky and Jalen Smith line up, running Jalen Smith at center. Kaminsky's a big body, but offensively he is in the situation he needs to be in is at 4 on offense. Kind of that mid-range, pick and pop, spacing the floor. I think that is where we saw him in his best games last year when he was at the 4 next to Aaron Baines, and I hope we continue to see more of that. The Holmes offensive rebounds are what put the final stake in the game. Overall, obviously a disappointing game because of the result. I think the 2-15 start played a significant part, as well as the piss poor rebounding on the backside from our wings. But yeah, can't wait to review the next Kings-Suns game. Hopefully that will have a better result, and hopefully we will be better prepared. I would like to see Ayton get some real post touches, but I definitely expect them to double next game as well. So don't be surprised if Ayton has a similar game. But I do expect Monty to prepare this team better for those Ayton doubles and to have increased ball movement out of the post. So yeah, I appreciate everybody for checking out this stream tonight. It was a lot of fun. I actually genuinely do love doing these analyses on the games. Not only am I watching the games regardless, but it keeps my mind active, and then I love interacting with y'all on the channel. No fucks, I am actually just about to hop off stream, but I appreciate you popping in. And I will talk to y'all later.